Welcome to the Good Divorce Show. Not every divorce needs to end in disaster. It's time to see divorce in another perspective. Here to help with that is your host, Karen McNinney.
Well, hello, listeners. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are in for a wonderful experience in chatting today with Thomas Jenkins and Stacy Jenkins. They are 7 years post-divorce, both of them certified happiness coaches. And wouldn't you believe it, the divorce was going so well, they decided to go into business together. And together, they have a mission of helping folks just like you to see their way towards the good divorce, and thus have started the Happy Divorce Project. Welcome, Stacy and Thomas.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. It's great to be here.
Stacy, start us off with just what it is, and then we will.
A project about changing the face of divorce in this country. What people automatically think and feel when they hear the word divorce, and all the cultural things around a divorce being so negative and so scary and so awful, and all those heavy things that we, based on our own experience, thought we've got to do this because there's no need for that to exist out in the world. So we're determined to make a shift, hopefully globally, around how people experience divorce and how they think about it. The way we do this is through live workshops and personal coaching or group coaching. We have an online program. So there's a variety of ways that we work with people.
I'm so delighted to meet fellow pioneers. There are many of us. I feel like it is a changing global movement that we need to do divorce differently. And to remind everyone, that isn't to say that we're pro-divorce. We want long, happy relationships in any form. And at the Good Divorce Show, we always say your marriage may be ending, but often the relationship is not. And particularly if there's children, it's more of a family renovation and how we can do that well. Would you mind, Thomas, just talking a little bit more about how you're working with clients?
Sure. Stacy mentioned our website, thehappydivorceproject.com, and there people will find that we work 3 different ways. The first and simplest is we offer a weekly Zoom call that people can tune into. And usually the first 15 minutes are a teaching, an exercise, and then we take questions so that people can find out what the Happy Divorce Project is all about. Because just putting those 2 words together, happy and divorce, automatically causes curiosity. The second way that we work with people is through coaching, either with individuals or couples. And that can be a single session. Actually, the first session is free. But what we suggest is a 12-week cycle, because to bring about real changes, it's required, the thinking, the thoughts that we're approaching, that we want people to question, to change those thoughts and consider new thoughts, can take a few months at least. And then the third way that we work is workshops. And we're offering our first workshop in Bridgewater, New Jersey on September 29th. What's incredibly powerful about the workshops is that there's the content that really brings about significant change, but then being in a room with a group of people that are all going through the same challenges is really profound, so that people realize they're not alone in this journey. The room is just filled with potential and new possibilities.
And support. I think you speak to a very common experience inside the divorce experience of isolation. People don't know what to do with us. Do we have to pick sides? There's shame connected to it, the sense of failure. So it's beautiful that you're creating an environment where people can come together. And you say much of this has grown out of your own personal experience and your own divorce experience. Can you give us a little context? Who are we talking to? How long were you married? Do you have kids? How long have you been divorced?
We were together for 20 years, married for 15. As you said, we've been divorced for 7. We were coaches before we got divorced. When we got divorced, we did it with such grace and ease that within a year of getting divorced, I called Stacy and, with our coaching background, I said, we should really consider reaching out and working with people that are going through divorce, because it wasn't as if our divorce and the ease and grace was just a miracle or magic. There were basic skills of how we treated one another that other people I knew could benefit from.
Stacy, talk a little bit about that decision-making point. I think people get caught in almost the purgatory of, are we in? Are we out? Are we in? Are we out? And that often there's a decider and someone who is leaving or instigating that, and someone who is left and can fall into victim mode. And usually how we begin is how we end. Walk us through that stage of the process.
As Thomas and I began our relationship, we had attended a workshop together that was really the basis of our whole relationship together, where we learned a variety of things. It was a workshop around getting to what motivates you and understanding that your pain isn't about somebody or something outside of yourself. What I learned in that workshop is that if I feel the urge to blame, which still comes up today, that urge to blame if something goes wrong or doesn't go my way, or somebody says something that upsets me in some way, that the ability to, the habit, I should say, it's a habit of stopping myself and understand that it's not about them. It's not about that thing. It's not about what happened. It's about something in me that I need to understand. And I had the habit of whenever Thomas and I had different disagreements in our marriage, the habit of stopping and saying, okay, it's not about him and what he's saying. I'm just my buttons are being pushed. We had a way of being able to navigate through those times in our marriage. So as far as getting to the place of ending the marriage, it was something that I hadn't planned on.
I don't know many of us who are planning for our divorce, which might be one of the blind spots.
Right.
Plan B.
Mm-hmm. Which of you began to speak this truth that this marriage was complete and coming to an end?
That would be Thomas. And I had enough trust in him and experience with him and knowing of him. I trusted his intuition and what his observations were about our relationship and about his own needs. So when he started voicing the quote unspeakable, I knew in my heart that it was true. And as much as I didn't want our wonderful marriage to end, I had to start letting that in of maybe, knowing it's not about me, but that I loved him enough to know, and that it was important for me to just allow, if it meant ending our marriage, for him to pursue the life he needed to, and to have his needs and follow his heart to where it needed to go, which is totally his unique journey, that I had to be willing to let go of what we had. That was so amazing because I loved him. So If you love somebody, you're willing to give them what they need. And that didn't mean I didn't have feelings about, I don't want to do this, moments of like, no, I don't want to do this. But I knew, like I said, deep down, what the truth was and what I had to do, what the right thing to do was.
Thomas, would you mind unpacking a little bit of your perspective for us as you were approaching that moment and that conversation with Stacy?
It was a 1.5 year conversation. It really circled around me wanting to see other people. And yet I couldn't even admit that to myself. What I did have in Stacy was someone that I knew I could always talk to. And especially when I needed clarity about what was going on inside of me. She's really good at asking questions and holding space. When I began this conversation, she immediately intuited. She said, "Do you want to see other people?" I said, no, that's not it, because I couldn't even imagine going through the rest of my life without Stacy. That was literally an impossibility. And yet this desire want was coming up. Like I said, it took a 1.5 years. When I finally acknowledged, yes, I want to see other people, it was this really quick conversation. And Stacy said, "Well, I guess we're getting divorced." I suggested that we go to see a woman named Leslie Vallely, who is a happiness coach and did a happy on purpose coaching program. This way of working that we had of no blame, working with Leslie and then taking her course to become certified happiness coaches, gave us a structure for the work that we were already doing and a lot of different exercises to amplify different principles. And from that moment, I mean, Stacy has been a rock star ever since I've known her and first met her. I'll often speak to her or speak about her to friends and in my men's group. And they always get this sense like, oh, it's like this level of devotion that Stacy and Thomas have for each other is comparable to a couple that's still married. And people always ask, "Do you think, you're ever going to get back together?" And Stacy and I both say, no, that's not what we want, that we experience each other as best friends. And so I'll always ask people, imagine your best friend. Do you feel that you need to be intimate with them? And people always say, well, no. And I'm like, exactly. That's where Stacy and I live.
Thomas was talking, it reminded me of early on when that knowing came to me that, well, I guess we're getting divorced, or I know we're getting divorced. All the feelings that came with it, and going with Thomas's suggestion of let's work with Leslie. This idea of getting help, that was a key thing, because all of the feelings that come up for anybody you're going to be challenged at times. I think it's paramount that you be willing to be open and ask for help. As I was working through all these different feelings that I have of feeling angry or betrayed or scared, and at the same time excited and wondering what's next and being relieved and happy that we're getting clear about things, that I also realized how ugly a divorce could turn very quickly. I made the decision that no matter what, I was going to keep loving Thomas and hold this space inside myself of the love that I've always had for Thomas and I still do today, but that I knew during this transition, it was going to be really important to stay on top of that, to keep that flame going, as it were, keep that flame protected, that yes, I do love this person. I do have their best interests in heart as well as mine. And there's room for both of those. As long as I hold to that and keeping this vision or perspective of this person, even when I can see where he's flawed and I can feel anger toward him, or I can feel in conflict with them, at the base of it all, there's still that love.
This is such a counterintuitive thought that I'm leaving someone that I still have love for, which is one of the mantras in the good divorce process. Don't stay too long, leave while there's still love. And there is a love story, like little nesting dolls inside this relationship. I think people stay and blow the whole thing up so they can justify the departure, rather than embracing there is a point of completion here and that we can repurpose the relationship on the other side.
If you ask us both today, like, are we happy that we did it? And we're both so happy that we did it because things happened in our lives that we know couldn't have happened if we had stayed together. If anything, our relationship was too comfortable in certain ways.
So, Thomas, we were speaking about this counterintuitive notion of that you can be in a loving relationship and still leave that relationship. And many of us in the work of improving the divorce narrative would suggest that is the time to leave.
I think it may have been on one of your podcasts where I heard the statistic that people will stay in marriages often for 7 years from the time that they first think of leaving. And as I said, it was 1.5 years from the time that I first started having these feelings. My love for Stacy never changed. It has never changed. And so it was confusing. It is a good question. Do we then unconsciously subvert our relationships so that we have a reason to leave rather than listening to more of our inner guidance, our intuition?
And when we come back from the break, we're going to continue our conversation with Thomas and Stacy Jenkins, happiness coaches and founders of the Happy Divorce Project.
Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today.
Before you call the lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach. Give your family the gift of working with a certified divorce coach, a co-parenting specialist, and a mediator. Karen McNinney has the knowledge and skills to guide you through the full divorce journey, before, during, and after. It's one thing to get divorced. It's another to be divorced. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to be divorced with less drama, less destruction, and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Do you ever have an off day? Or is your life positive and uplifting? Making Life Brighter is a forum for positive, inspired, and contemplative thought, showcasing experts in their fields, including authors, musicians, and artists. Your host, Winifred Adams, will bring to life topics to stimulate and make your life brighter. We want to hear from you. Be sure to tune in Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Voice America Network proudly presents The Catherine Zox Show for women, men, children, and families. Catherine magically combines her compassion, experience, and talent to bring listeners a show that's upbeat, informative, and yes, a little sassy. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern to The Catherine Zox Show on the Voice America channel.
Stimulating talk
gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
all the time. The #1 internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
Welcome back to the Good Divorce Show with Karen McNinney. Have a question for Karen or her guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5788. That's 866-472-5788. Now, back to the show with Karen.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Karen McNinney, your Good Divorce Coach, chatting today with two happiness coaches, Thomas and Stacy Jenkins, married for 20 years, divorced for 7, and back in business together, leading the Happy Divorce Project. Often how we begin is how we end. And there's a lot of examples out there of how to do divorce poorly. We are so tickled to have both of you on the air with us today to really learn more about how to do it better. Where do you think people often get it wrong as they approach the divorce journey?
We get it wrong when we take the signal of being offended as being based on a truth, that we've had a thought, we're offended by it because of something did, and just assuming that that thought is true and it validates our being offended. And that just leads to a cycle. We then behave in a certain way that then the other person may be offended by, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow, and animosity becomes really problematic. Where we start to get it right is when we feel offended, going back to what is my judgment about what just happened? So is it really the event that happened, or is it my judgment about the event and then the resulting offense, feeling offended? And starting to question that, because my experience is that those judgments are always untrue. And so this feeling offended, while you can't argue with someone's feeling, you can question the thoughts that lead to the feelings. And then people start to thrive when they take those first thoughts that lead to offense, they set them aside, and they start to consider other possibilities. I can remember a time I was washing the dishes after dinner with Stacy. I had a meeting in 10 minutes, and I had 10 minutes worth of dishwashing to do. Stacy was behind me in the kitchen, and I noticed this feeling coming up, and it was striking how strong it was. And I was definitely feeling offended because Stacy wasn't helping me. Had I asked for help? No. But Stacy wasn't helping me, and I had this meeting to go to, and she knows that I like to be to meetings on time. And so why hasn't she offered to help? And this whole story is just starting to cycle out of control. I, of course, spoke up. Stacy, hey, I've got this meeting in 10 minutes, but I've got 10 minutes worth of dishes. Could you help me? Because then it will take 5 minutes and I'll have 5 minutes to get there. Oh, sure, Thomas. And she jumps in and helps me. Investigating the whole offense, though, later, I was really curious, like, whoa, I was really upset. And what I found was that the layers of belief were Stacy's being inconsiderate. She doesn't care about me. And then at the core, and this is what I find with every client I work with, at the core is I must not be enough, or I'm not worthy.
Yes, those wounds, those deep, deep wounds, and just over dishes. It's amazing. Our brains are so busy making up stories all damn day,
All day.
all the time about everything. Do you even have a recollection of this moment, Stacy?
No.
Right. Exactly. Because you weren't even involved in the story.
Right.
You didn't even, you were an innocent bystander. And that also is, reminiscent of those nonviolent communication skills that some of us are familiar with, of being, clear with your requests and then also being clear with your boundaries. And then people can choose as a result of that, rather than being caught up in this story making. And for you, Stacy, as you think about also where couples get it wrong and kind of a practice of building new skills, are there things that you have carried with you into your post-divorce life that have continued to breathe life into you?
It's always been this thread through our entire relationship, before the divorce and after, of the practice of not blaming whatever's happening outside of me or whoever is doing something outside of me, really being willing to look inside myself.
It's so easy to blame. I love blaming. It takes me right off the hook and makes my day better. But it sounds like you're really challenging us and this habit that we have. In fact, I've heard you both talk about really trying to create a no blame relationship, which sounds alien to probably most of our listeners. What do you on a daily practice to stay in that place of not handing your power over, coming into victimhood, and being blame-free?
One of the ones that I practice on a daily basis is when I am about to have a conversation, or I'm in conflict, or have something challenging that I have to deal with, I like to sit down and get quiet, take a deep breath, take a few moments or a few minutes if I can afford it, and imagine a surprisingly unexpected unexpected outcome of what I'm about to experience. And I don't have to know like what happens, why it happens, how it happens. Just the fact that, oh, I had that conversation and afterward I feel great.
So what Stacy has just described is actually being proactive. So there's the practice of noticing when we're triggered and dealing with the triggers then. But what Stacy has said is we don't have to wait for our triggers to be active in our inner life. We can actually move forward with our feelings and create feelings in the moment and then watch to see how the world responds to us feeling a certain way.
I often have a belief that behavior is contagious. Emotions are contagious. So what are you spreading, folks? And even people listening who are like, yes, I want to be part of the happy divorce story and the good divorce experience, but my spouse, someone who came through the divorce experience, who wasn't asking for it, and yet one ended up happy, one ended up unhappy. Who can unpack that a little bit more and recognizing that it's wonderful when both partners, such as yourselves, walk down this path, but it is not a requirement.
So when we're hired by a couple, the first thing we make clear with them is we are not working with them as a couple. We are not coaching the relationship. We are actually coaching them as individuals. Will the relationship improve? Yes, because our point is the challenges that you're facing, the relationship is chasing, are issues that are within each of you as individuals. And as those get cleared up, as those get cleaned up, the relationship becomes easier.
And so there was this moment you reflected, Thomas, where a client, wife declares, I want a divorce out of the blue, totally shocked. They go through this divorce experience. And in the end, he finds his way to happiness and she doesn't. Do you have a theory of what transpired in that story?
I love that you ask if I have a theory, because I remember that moment as he was sitting there and it was almost like this, it was a moment of wonder and he was experiencing the bliss of happiness of just having gone through this divorce, that on the first day, I imagine his thought was, the next few months, the next year of my life is going to be hell. It's going to be chaos. My wife has just surprised me with this. And yet the past 3 months were this really enjoyable experience. And then the other piece that I believe he was reflecting on was that his wife had initiated the divorce. She had gotten everything that she asked for from him. Like I said, he still cared for her very much. He wanted her to be happy. I think when he was looking at her and her unhappiness, he was reflecting on his own process and the coaching sessions and how simple they were, the exercises. And he was wondering, is it really that simple? Being happy, like by choosing to pay attention to our thoughts, choosing thoughts that serve us better. When Stacy and I, we worked with teens at risk for a number of years. And one of the most common questions we would ask them is, how's that working for you? When they would be upset about something or complaining, or just, how's that working for you? Mm-hmm. To engage them in the process of, do you see that you're a part of this? In the same manner, he was looking at his part and how the divorce had worked out so well, how happy he was, and wondering, wow, is it really that easy? Is what made the difference from my experience to my wife's experience of me being happy and her still being upset, even though she got everything she wanted. Is it really just those simple choices I made along the way?
Mm-hmm. And it is a significant lifestyle change. And one of the things that you've identified, Stacy, is, on the cusp of divorce, knowing that there would be singlehood alone. Yeah. And one of the things we work with a lot in our client group is how to be alone and be absent of kind of the terror of loneliness. And those are two different things. How have you interfaced and come to terms with that initial fear of being alone and then finding the delight in the singlehood?
Yes, that definitely was a thing for me when it was clear we were going to be divorced, and the fear of, can I make it on my own? I've been with this person for so long. We've been such a great team together, supporting each other. And like, all of a sudden that's going to be gone. And can I do this? And this fear of being alone. When I was able to talk myself down and remembering that it's something that I'm sure many people have heard said, that you need to love yourself before you can have a healthy relationship. And there was a wise woman who said it in the way of, you need to become your own best lover. And when I heard that, it really spoke to me. And I thought, I'm just going to take that on. I'm going for it. I'm going to just be my own best lover. Because when I really allowed myself to be present in that idea and really imagine, like, wow, I can be my own best lover. I don't have to have somebody that I've got to find, and it's got to be the right person. It's got to, all of that. When I would meet a new partner, that would make it like over the top, even that much better. That carried me through the toughest times. And then it just created this confidence in myself and trust in myself, and therefore trust in the world and the unknown. Like, there's so much unknown coming your way when you step into divorce. So that was huge for me.
Also connecting beautifully with what Thomas was saying, and those misunderstandings and stories, we get down to those core wounds. I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. I'm not valued. And no amount of external love or attention can ever really fill that well. And listeners, I know the pain of the loneliness and the searching for that other person. And there's this old mantra that 1 + 1 = 2, or where's my other half? And really, I think what we're professing here is that wholeness of self is what brings about the best and most rich love. And loving oneself sounds very easy in theory and is actually a lifelong journey for most of us. Well, when we come back, I'm going to ask you all about these 3 categories of divorce. And listeners, stay with us. We'll be returning with Thomas and Stacy Jenkins, our happiness coaches and founders of the Happy Divorce Project.
Want to see what Voice America is up to behind the scenes? Follow us on TikTok at Voice America Talk Radio.
Tune in every Friday to get your weekend kickoff early. Join the legendary G. Keith Alexander for What's Hot Harlem America. The flagship show of the new Harlem America Digital Network has something for everyone. From the latest in entertainment to empowerment, health and wellness, and more, we'll bring you a variety of fresh viewpoints, voices, and ideas. What's Hot Harlem America with G. Keith Alexander can be heard every Friday at 1 p.m. in New York and 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Planning for college? Tune in to Getting In, a college coach conversation for tips, techniques, and insider perspectives. Hosted by Bright Horizons College Coach, a team of former admissions and financial aid officers, the show takes a deep dive on subjects such as choosing the best essay topic, negotiating merit aid, and navigating the Common App. Listeners will learn what really goes into college acceptance decisions from the experts who used to make them. New episodes drop Thursdays on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Relationships can be tricky. If you are looking for more from the relationships in your life, tune in to Kissing in a Tree with host Kelly Nichols. Kelly is a body-positive sex and relationship coach, and she wants to share her knowledge to help you become a better partner and a better person. Kissing in a Tree, Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Streaming live, the leader in Internet talk radio, voiceamerica.com.
Welcome back to the Good Divorce Show with Karen McNinney. Have a question for Karen or her guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5788. That's 866-472-5788. Now, back to the show with Karen.
Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in today as we chat with Thomas and Stacy Jenkins, happiness coaches and founders of the Happy Divorce Project. You both tend to see divorce in sort of three big categories that most divorces fall into these three buckets. How would you identify those, Thomas?
The three categories. The first is two people that are taking responsibility for their reactions and then their responses. Those marriages, divorces are characterized by being fairly easy. When they are clients, their work with us there's some healing work of looking at feelings and thoughts and tweaking that. But often our work with them moves into the creation realm of what do they really want to do next. And they start to see the potential that their divorce is actually a springboard into this even greater, bigger life. The second category is you have one individual who's taking responsibility for their reactions and their responses, and the other person isn't. And it's hard to characterize this divorce because if you talk to one person, they might say it's going swimmingly, and I'm just so excited. And the other person says, I never want to get married again. This is absolute hell. And I am a believer in that it does not take two to tango. You can have one person spinning a drama, and the other person in the marriage is just in wonder at what's going on and is so confused. But sometimes they may get caught up into it, into the, being held responsible for the drama too. And they're wondering, how am I responsible for this? It reminds me of a conversation I just had the other day with a gentleman in his 60s. I was telling him about Happy Divorce, and he said, Thomas, I totally get this. He said, I was married for 20 years. It was very dramatic. I just came to believe that marriages really required a lot of work. We got divorced. 10 years later, I got married. I've been married for 6 years. It is so easy. This woman that I'm married to, we just so enjoy each other's presence and appreciate everything about each other. And it doesn't require any work. It's effortless.
What a blessing for them. That's yes. Beautiful to hear.
And the third category is neither individual takes responsibility for their reactions or their responsibility. And it's just this endless spiral of accusations and blame and hurt feelings. And you can these are characterized by usually having the most emotionally painful outcomes, financially costly. So those are the three categories.
Yeah. And I would totally agree with that in my experience as well. And what I see. And I often think if people can get to coaches, like call your coach before you call your lawyer, please.
Right. Yes.
Because then we can set the tone and get people in a place of taking equal responsibility and deciding the relationship, the renovated relationship that they want to build. So Stacy, you've gone on and re-partnered. I'm curious what you have brought with you into your second long-term partnership that was a learning classroom from your marriage with Thomas.
Well, it has been a very different experience, a very completely different relationship, obviously, a very different person. So I have had endless opportunity to just really take 100% responsibility, not having to depend on waiting for him to see it my way or things to come around to where it's agreeable. It's in a relationship, it's not a 50-50 thing. It's like if each person takes 100% responsibility, then it can be amazing. So Thomas made a mention before of that we needed to leave our marriage in order to have some breakthroughs on personal levels. And this new relationship is exactly what I needed to help me break through some of my own personal shame, things that I felt shame around that didn't necessarily have to do with the divorce. It's just in my own personal growth.
And I think the lesson is that doesn't have anything to do with your current partner or your former partner. That is
Right.
your responsibility of how you plan to show up and the requests you make and the boundaries that you keep. Congratulations. I can see, which you can't see on the radio, but Stacy's all glowy and smiley and equally so her former spouse. I see, Thomas, that your heart is warm and celebrating for Stacy as well.
Oh yeah. One of the gifts that we have in our current relationship and from before is that we've always had this open communication. And so our divorce communication never shut down. And so we continued to talk about our experiences and the things that we were going through. And so we both saw that after the divorce, the shame that was coming up that we were both having to process. And so, yeah, I'm just tickled for Stacy.
Take us back, Thomas, to where this work really started to become evident to you and that you knew that there was a shift happening for yourself and something that you could share and bring to other people as well.
I'm seeing that every time I'm triggered or upset, whether it's by you or my colleagues or my students or their parents, that it actually has nothing to do with any of those people. And it's all from my past and patterns that were created as a child to protect me from traumas I had had. And from that moment, Stacy and I, this organic no blame relationship started. And what came up as ways to work with each other, where there were 3 distinct ways, and we weren't conscious about this. It just came from not blaming and choosing a different path, that we would either ask for space from the other person, just saying, I'm so triggered right now. I just need 5 minutes and then I'll come back to the conversation. Or, hey, I need to talk about something. I'm not looking for feedback. I'm upset. I want to blame you. I'm not going to, I'm not needing feedback. Can I just talk? And the third was, hey, I'm so deep in this and I do need feedback and some coaching here. And those 3 ways of working worked so well. We, in 20 years, never went to bed angry. And working through the issues, on average, 5 minutes. 20 minutes would be a long conversation.
That really is exceptional.
So when we got to, when it came time to get divorced, what I've noticed, one of the things that distinguishes our divorce is neither of us had a list of upsets of, when you did this 10 years ago, I've been upset about that for because it was always, things were always being brought up to the present. It was always taking personal responsibility. So there was never, like I said, a list of blame that was years long. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's turn our attention towards the work and the resources that you have for folks so that they can also have a slice of what you've talked about today through the Happy Divorce Project. Stacy, if I were to, your next event is New Jersey this fall. Remind us where and the dates.
It's going to be at a Maggiano's in Bridgewater, New Jersey, September 29th through October 1st, 2023.
So what else would be the shape and the kinds of things that we could expect at a Happy Divorce workshop?
So what we've created really comes out of our experience as Waldorf teachers. For those who don't know about Waldorf education, it's been around since, I think, just the early 1900s, 1920 or so. But it came out of this desire to change the world after the First World War. So there is this beautiful curriculum in the Waldorf education that can be shaped for whatever culture you're living in. and it's designed to meet the needs of a developing human being through all stages of development. And even as adults, we are still developing and growing ideally. And as human beings, we're not just this brain that's full of information. We're not just this body that moves around in this three-dimensional plane and eats food and sleeps. We are not just this being that just feels things. So we're all of these aspects. We're multifaceted. And the way we put our workshop together addresses that. And in we are creating activities and an environment in which to be where there's great safety. There is a great amount of like artistry involved. And I don't want people to be afraid of like artistry. I'm not an artist. What do you like? I don't want to like, that sounds scary. It's more about addressing that part of you, that creative part of you, the feeling part of you, addressing that, and then doing and moving the body, using the voice, and doing actual movements and activities that integrate everything that we're learning conceptually, or that we're taking in through our intellect and our mind. So weaving all those things together makes for a really just this beautiful, enriching experience, and memorable. Because I don't know about you, for me, if I'm just trying to remember something through like by memorizing it, it doesn't have the same, I don't have the same experience or understanding of it as if I'm actually working with something through writing, through speaking, through hearing stories, sharing experiences with other people around these different ideas and ways of developing new habits for ourselves, having new realizations for ourselves.
Ideally, Stacy and we have an intent that individuals will leave the weekend both feeling rested and nourished. That they'll literally go home feeling as if they just had a vacation. And I know it's hard to imagine a divorce workshop, like leaving that feeling nourished and rested. But
would participants be those that are in the midst of divorce? Do they come with their couple? Is it post-divorce, long-term?
It can actually be anyone. We have clients who are 10 years out of a marriage, are realizing that they still have attachments and issues and upsets. And so they came to us asking, can you help me with this so that I'm no longer upset about a divorce that happened 10 years ago? We also believe that we'll have participants at the workshop that leave feeling like, wait, do we want to get divorced? Like now that we're taking accountability for all of our reactions and responses, you're much more enjoyable to spend time with than you were 2 days ago because I'm no longer holding you responsible. And yet we're not attached to people staying married to get divorced. What we want to really help people with is their inner peace.
So it might be couples that are in the discernment stage. Are we looking for a divorce coach?
Right.
Or are we looking for a marital therapist? And this might be a place to get skills. It might be someone who's in the heat of it and looking for ways to process and help support a happy divorce experience. Or as you said, those that are really in the long road of divorce recovery. Mm-hmm. This first workshop will be taking place in New Jersey, getting our East Coast folks. Where else can we expect for the happy divorce workshops to be taking place in the coming year?
We are looking at 12 different cities. The next two where we would like to hold them would be Atlanta and then Austin. And
wonderful.
Months after New Jersey.
And where can listeners find you as a coaching resource, as well as more information about the workshop opportunities?
You can find us at happydivorceproject.com. And on our website, if you go to the events page and click on the online events, you can join one of our free Zoom sessions where you can find out more and ask us questions. You can also click on the in-person events, their events, and find out where our latest workshop is going to be. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Facebook under Happy Divorce Project. And you can reach out to us. Our contact information is on the website. So you can email us if you like, or call us. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, a special shout out to Bobby Livingston, who now lives in North Idaho, who I was in 4th grade with. And he connected all of us and saw these are 2 groups of pioneers who are working towards the same thing. So thanks, Bob, for that connection.
Bob.
Thanks,
and
Bob.
If each of you just had a little nugget to send away as a bit of wisdom to pass on to our listeners, what might that be today?
Please know that divorce is not shameful. You don't have to feel ashamed. It doesn't have to be hard. You also need to just ask for help, whether it's looking for a coach or speaking with a trusted friend. Just understand you are not alone. I ask that you try out, I invite you to try out the what I shared earlier around imagining an surprisingly unexpected outcome of something.
Thank you so much, Stacy Jenkins, happiness coach and ex-husband Thomas Jenkins and current business partner. What words of wisdom do you have for us today?
One of the core principles for our work is making life easy. Historically, things are easier than they have ever been, than they were 200 years ago. If you think about the amount of free time we have, so on and so forth. And yet somehow there is a view that things may be more difficult than they've ever been. So asking people to consider making things easy, I would really encourage people to come to our Zoom call once a week. It's easy. You can find out the time on our website. There are 100,000 people getting divorced in the Northeast Corridor this year. That's why we placed our first workshop there in New Jersey, is that it's right at the center of, this huge population of people that we really want to help make things easy. And you can not just come to one Zoom call, you can come in week after week. They're free. And ask us questions, find out what HDP is about, and get help. That's why we're here. We want to help.
That has been so clear. Thank you both, Thomas and Stacy Jenkins of the Happy Divorce Project. Listeners, thank you again for spending another week with me in conversation. And remember, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Good Divorce Show. We hope today's episode has helped you find a kinder, more sensible, and less expensive path through the divorce journey. Until we talk again, have a beautiful week.